Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the Language Learner Job Training Program Grant. Today we have a panel. My name is Sarah Bath, and I'm going to be the point of contact for this grant. I am an employee of Iowa Workforce Development. I'm one of the operation managers for the Iowa Works office here in Des Moines. We have Brooke Axiotis from Legal, Patrick Rice, who will be your Iowa Works contact or Iowa Grants contact, Karen Evans with Future Ready Iowa, and then we should be having Victor Kennedy from Finance joining us. So as we're going to go through some slides and kind of give a brief description regarding what this grant is all about, and then Patrick will then lead us into a little discussion on how to utilize the Iowa Grants registration program. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen started. All righty, everybody, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so let's see. So the intent of this grant is to provide funding for employers to develop and implement long-term sustainable programs that will reduce barriers in the workplace. So employers, and it's also for employers who either are expanding existing programs or are wanting to create new programs designed to provide dual instruction and to increase English language proficiency. So in order to be eligible for this grant, applicants will need to submit a plan that details the language training program, targeting towards reducing language barriers within the workplace and opportunities for participants to advance in their career. So this grant will provide funding for employers to develop and implement I apologize. So this is for employee participation is voluntary. The programs must provide dual language instruction for current employees to increase English language proficiencies. And in addition to, they also have the ability to English language instructions. Employers may also provide support to English speakers to learn another language to better communicate with staff or as an aid to recruitment and retention of staff. It is encouraged that language courses are provided or conducted on site of the place of employment or consortium members in order to remove transportation barriers. When you are applying, we want to make sure that the hours of instruction per week for the employees are included on that application. When trying to determine an instructor for this language program, you have a few options: certified instructors with fluency in English and the primary language of the students who possesses a teaching degree or certificate, instructors who have documented language proficiency for non-native English speakers, or instructors who have had previous experience in similar trainings with valid employer references. So for performance measures, all applicants must include performance measures that connect project goals with proposed activities and demonstrate an overall change in language proficiencies. So within the application, we want to know the anticipated number of new language learner programs established for employees, the anticipated number of employees participating within the various programs, the anticipated number of employees completing and or exiting the various programs, anticipated measures of an increase in language proficiency within the workplace as demonstrated by evaluation tools, anticipated percentage of participants receiving a pay increase or promotion due to the program participation or increase of responsibilities, and then current employee retention rates along with the anticipated percentage of the employee retention after the program. So it's also important to note that all programs must contain a plan for sustainability out of the outcome beyond the grant period. So I want to talk about project requirements in the match. So applicants must provide proof of the existence of the required private investment. Acceptable proofs must be certified statement from FDIC insured financial institution holding the funds. In the absence of a statement from a financial institution, an affidavit from a CPA can be used to certify the existence of the required private investment. Approved documents may include a bank statement showing the required match funds, a letter from the financial institution listing the amount of the available funds, or an operating line of credit amount, or a signed letter from your external audit firm stating that the business has access to unrestricted cash balances on hand and or access to a bank line of credit to match the dollar amount or above. So this is a $5 million grant opportunity, and the minimum award will be set at $5,000. IWD is not obligated to provide the maximum grant requested and may award to multiple projects. So funding decisions are going to be made as funding is available, and the grant will be paid out on a 50-50 reimbursement match basis. So all grants must be utilized and project completed within an 18-month time period. So, and these funds are administered as reimbursement only, and there are no advanced payments allowed. So businesses will have the ability to have multiple cohorts, but each cohort can only be eligible for funding for 32 weeks. So for the use of funds, all funds requested through the budget narrative and budget summary should provide justification of the costs, and the majority of funds should match closely to the project priorities. So then on this slide, it really discusses the eligible use and the ineligible use of funds. So for eligible uses is computer, software, headset, anything that, any kind of technology that participant will need. Instructor wages for up to 4 hours per week for up to 32 weeks. So you can have multiple cohorts, but for each cohort, 4 hours per week for up to 32 weeks. You can purchase textbooks, workbooks, curriculum software. There's an opportunity for transportation expenses if that program was to occur off-site. And then there's also a grant administration expense of up to 5% of total awarded funds. So the ineligible use of funds would be your capital expenditures, food, gift cards, conference travel expenses, employee wages, and fringe benefit expenses. But we want to really make sure that you understand that employee wages are not an eligibility reimbursement expense. However, employers that pay employees for the time spent may use that as submit proof for wage payments, and these wage payments can be considered towards that 50% employer match for up to 4 hours per week per participant. So when we talk about reporting requirements, successful applicants need to submit both a quarterly narrative progress report to each quarter and then a final report. And so this report needs to summarize the activities, the outcomes, and key performance indicators of the project, along with a description of how those measurement tools and metrics were used to determine the success. And we are also looking for a summary of lessons learned and an ongoing plan for sustainability. For the financial reporting requirements, we need to have invoices, receipts, and expenditures. We also would like clarifying statements documenting how the funds were spent and certify the funds were used to in accordance with the application of the program. So financial quarterly reports will not be processed until the quarterly narrative reports are satisfied. And all documentation for reimbursement and report issues are due no later than December 15th, 2024. All eligible applicants can include businesses, nonprofits, and a consortium of employers. And applicants are highly encouraged to cultivate partnerships where appropriate. So in order to apply for this grant, one would just need to go to the iowagrants.gov website, and applications are due by December 2nd, 2022 at 11:59 a.m. And applications, and this is an online application. In this packet, which will also be on the website, there are different appendices. So there's grant guidance for Appendix A, for Appendix B, the scoring rubric, Appendix C, the Iowa Grants new user registration instructions, and then Appendix D, a budget narrative and an Excel spreadsheet for your use. So the next few slides just kind of give a brief description or brief picture of what those look like. And just remember and consider is that partnerships are really valuable with this grant, and cost per participant will be taken into consideration. Make sure you review your administration costs in relation to your participant supports, and reporting requirements are all listed in the NOFO, or the notice of funding. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach me. I've listed my phone number and my email address, and I will ensure that your questions get answered by the appropriate party. And that's the end of my presentation.
I would like to add real quick, if you have questions during this webinar, if you'll place them in the Q&A section instead of the chat. At the end of this, we will answer as many as we have time for. Any that we don't answer live at the end of this, we will send the Q&A, the slideshow, as well as the recording to everybody that registered for today's webinar. So you will have that information, and it will also be on the Future Ready Iowa website.
Thank you, Karen. Patrick, do you want to go, or do we want to start answering questions, Karen?
Karen, what would you like?
I think let's go to Patrick just so we can get that in, and worst case, we'll get the Q&A sent out to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Rice, and I am the grant administrator here at IWD. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to walk through the Iowa Grants website a little bit. So hopefully everyone's seeing right now a PowerPoint slide that says navigating iowagrants.gov. Perfect. Okay. And as you can see, that my name is listed there, as well as Brian Dennis, who is another representative with IWD that works with iowagrants.gov. So if you have never used iowagrants.gov before to apply for a grant, these first slides are going to walk through new registration. So if you're a brand new user to Iowa Grants, you first need to just go to the website listed above, www.iowagrants.gov, and then click New Users Register Here. Okay. Again, this is for new users only. If you have a prior account, we'll go through how you do that in just a bit. So for a new user, please select New Users Register Here. Once you click that link, it will open up a blue box that allows you to type in your first and last name and a big green square that says Register. Okay. From here, it'll take you to the next blue box, the next link that will allow you to type in your email. You do have to have a valid email in order to use this program, because there's a lot of communication that happens through email for setting up your registration. So again, the first blue box is you just type in your first and last name. The next screen is where you type in your email. You would then click the Save Account Details button at the bottom, and that will send a notification to your email address that you just provided. So again, you first type in your first and last name, then your email address, click the link at the bottom, and that will send a registration email to the email that you provided. Now, this confirmation email again, we'll ask you for some security questions, as well as to confirm the password or confirm a password. So this is where you really finish your registration, is through this email link. So once you receive that email, go into your email, open that up, type in the security questions and password, and that'll continue on to the iowagrants.gov process. Okay. So once you've done all that and you've selected your password and security questions, it'll open up a new window into Iowa Grants itself. So this is where you actually start typing in your information. It will open up your personal information. So this, you're creating your personal profile record. So you have your first and last name, your email address, your physical address, and phone number. At the bottom, you'll see a program area of interest. And even though that this isn't necessarily called out real vibrantly, this is an area that is really important because there are certain areas in certain program areas that only IWD will approve. And so if you are interested in a future grant with IWD, this is why this is important. One program area of interest that you can select, this grant award falls underneath Future Ready Iowa. So that would be the program area that you would want to select. Once your program area of interest is selected, go ahead and click the register button at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and that will send myself a final or a pending final approval. So what that does is that once you click register, there is a little bit of a lag from the time that you have finished your registration to the time that the system will actually give you access. Typically that's less than 24 hours. It just kind of depends on when you actually do it. I go in once or twice a day and look for those new registered users. But if you do this on a Friday at noon, I may not get to it until Monday the next day, or then the following Monday. So just be mindful that there is a little bit of a delay there. Usually, like I said, it's less than 24 hours. But if you do have any questions about the registration process, my email address as well as phone number is listed there. And if you can't get a hold of me, Brian Dennis is another person that you can reach out to, and his contact information is there as well. Okay, so that is just the information about setting up a new registration. What we're going to do next is you should now be seeing welcome to iowagrants.gov. This is actually the link that we're going to be going into. So now this is for returner users or for returners that have already set up their new account and they're logging into the system for the first time. Okay, so again, you can just type in iowagrants.gov in the top address bar. And again, click returning users sign in here because we've already completed the new registration. Once I do that, you will type in your information, your account ID. So this is my account ID information, and you will type in the password that you have already previously provided and click the large green sign in button. From here, you will be taken to your home screen. Now, this is once you get into the actual system of Iowa Grants, this is what the system will look like for you. You can see that the home screen, or is also known as menu, that's where we're currently at. If at any time you need to go back, there's also the back button. If you get too far and you get lost, you can always click the home screen again. Right now, we're going to be searching for this funding opportunity called the Iowa Language Learner Job Training Award. So we're going to first click funding opportunities, and that's going to pull up a long list of all available funding opportunities underneath IWD right now, or I'm sorry, that are available with the state right now. You can see that there's quite a long list. So I can do one of two things. I can look for the name of the grant underneath the blue. I can look for Future Ready Iowa, which is the program area. I can look under the agency for Iowa Workforce Development, or a quick way is to do Control F. Again, that is Control F, and you can see that there is a find window that just opened up. I'm going to type in language into that find option or find window, and you can quickly see that Iowa Language Learners is highlighted. So that's a quick way to find that link. And again, it's just Control F, and then you type in something that has to do with the title of the grant, which will take you there quickly. What I did once we find the title of the grant, that blue link will take you to the notice of funding opportunity. So you can see just some opportunity, the details here at the beginning. The project start date is December 1st, 2022. The project end date when the award was announced, but probably the most important is this application deadline. As Sarah said, it is December 2nd at 11:59 a.m. So please be aware that this does close at 11:59 a.m. on December 2nd. My contact information is listed here as the program officer again. So if you do have questions, you can reach out to me. Again, my information is really focused in on the Iowa Grants Program. So if you have questions regarding the grant award or the qualifications of this, that would need to go directed to Sarah. If it's specifically about the Iowa Grants Program and how to register and how to start the application, then that could come to me. All right. So as you scroll through the notice of funding opportunity, you'll notice again the important dates of December 2nd, 2002 at 11:59 a.m. is when it closes, and then it walks through the notice of funding opportunity. So we have the purpose statement here where it does talk about one of the areas that Sarah highlighted was how the qualifications for the instructors. So you can see that those are listed there. It does walk through some of the performance measures that she had mentioned earlier as what are the things that we're going to be looking for in the application. It does highlight some definitions, and one that I want to call out is the employer one, where it does talk about a minimum of 25 full-time employees. So please be aware that that is one of the requirements of this award, is that the employer, who is the applicant, needs to have a minimum of 25 full-time employees. You can see where the the funds are being appropriated from. So these are coming from the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, which is part of the American Rescue Plan Act. And other areas to call out, again, the minimum awards are set at $5,000. There is the 50-50 reimbursement match requirement. And then as Sarah highlighted, there's the eligibility period. So businesses can decide to operate multiple cohorts within the period of December 1st, 2022 through October 31st of 2024. So you can operate multiple cohorts within that 18-month period. However, each cohort can only be eligible for funding for up to 32 weeks. As you scroll through, you'll see the eligible use of funds that Sarah highlighted earlier in the presentation, as well as in addition to the English language course requirements. So in addition to providing an English language instruction, employers can also provide support to English speakers to learn another language also. Again, with this being a federal grant funds, there are going to be reporting requirements that you are responsible for. So please be aware that those reporting requirements are going to be something that you are responsible for if you are awarded to provide on a quarterly basis. So Sarah mentioned that there is the quarterly narrative progress report. This is an example of what some of those metrics are going to be, we're going to be asking for. Those have to be turned in and approved prior to the quarterly financial report coming. So there are going to be 2 reports on a quarterly basis that you'll be responsible for if you are awarded. And then it scrolls through eligible applicants as well as the payment schedule. At the bottom are the different attachments that Sarah highlighted at the end of that presentation. Appendix A is just some of the application guidance. Appendix B is what I really want to focus in on. Please look at this appendix because this is the scoring rubric and examples of or the information listed that we're going to be looking for in your application. So if you're not quite sure what to add in that section of your application, please review that scoring rubric because it does a good job of highlighting those specific areas. Appendix C is just a guide on the Iowa Grants new users, so that walks you through the slideshow that I had started with earlier. And then Appendix F is your budget spreadsheet. So Appendix F is a required attachment for your application because that is where you actually provide us the budget information. Okay. All right. So that walks through the notice of funding opportunity information that is on this first screen. But now, if you feel like you are wanting to start an application, the next step is to click Start an Application, which is the blue link at the top right-hand corner. And that'll take you to the next screen where you actually type in your the title of your application. So I'm just going to call it test application for the webinar. The organization I belong to is going to already be auto-populated, and then I'm going to click Save. Once I click Save, that is going to allow me to start an application. So again, my project title was Test Application Webinar, and now I'm going to go to the application forms. You can see that the general information I've already completed, because that is literally just titling your application. So what I want to do is really look at the main application. All of these areas have to be complete in order for you to submit an application, but the main application is where you're going to be actually listing out your the specifics about your project. Okay, so you can see that it starts with a project description, no more than 3 sentences. It's going to be asking for the defined barriers and need statements, the program narrative. Notice that in the description here that it's asking you, please review the requirements and descriptions requested within the Notice of Funding Opportunity Appendix B with the supporting details. So that's really important that those areas within the scoring rubric is highlighted in these sections. Okay, so again, see Notice of Funding Opportunity document for specific details. When it talks about the retention efforts, make sure that you're reviewing that Appendix B and entering that information into these text boxes. Okay. If you are going through this application and you get distracted or not able to finish something, always click Save, because what that's going to do is save your progress of where you are, and then you're going to be able to go back into it whenever you're ready. All right. Once your application is completed, you are going to click Mark as Complete, and then there's going to be an option for you to submit it. Once you submit it, then that is a finalized application. So if you want to review it, make sure you click Preview. But at the time that you are ready to submit it, go ahead and click the Submit button. All right. Like I said, if any time that you need to go back to a screen that you needed to, that you've advanced and you weren't quite ready to, you can always go back to back. The home button will always take you right back to our home screen again. To get back into that list of funding opportunities, you click Funding Opportunities, Control F to look for language, and then that's how you get into the application. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to back over to Sarah and Karen.
Thank you, Patrick. Karen, do you want to go over the questions, or what are you thinking about time?
Yep. So I think we've got quite a bit of time. I will just read the question out loud, and whoever on the panel knows the answer, if you can just state the answer, I will also type it into the Q&A that will be shared later. So the first question, who are you getting the 50-50 match from?
The 50-50 match comes from the employer or the applicant that is the applicant. So if as the business owner, if the business is applying, the business is supplying the 50-50 match. And again, as part of your application, you do need to provide that documentation that Sarah highlighted. What are the approved documents to prove that you have that 50-50 match available? Though that was listed, Sarah highlighted that, but that is also listed in detail in the Notice of Funding Opportunity.
Then in addition to that, so if you have a consortium of employers, all of that consortium can put those funds up, but one main employer would be the applicant out of that consortium. So the next question, are public employers, i.e. school districts, city, county, etc., eligible to apply?
As long as they meet the definition of an employer under the NOFO, the terms of the NOFO, then yes.
If the employer is paying the worker their seat time and it's part of their scheduled workday, couldn't they require the worker to participate in the training? So it sounds like that one's going to take a little bit more thought on our end. We will, again, answer this and get it distributed. How do you define dual language? Is that in the NOFO, Patrick, do you know?
That's what I'm looking up right now.
Okay.
It's
I don't
not
believe
defined.
it's not defined in the NOFO, no.
Right.
So we will add a definition for that as well. Will this be applicable to online language learning solutions as well as in person? It looked like it, but I just want to clarify.
Yeah, the notice of funding opportunity does not specify that it has to be in person with a physical classroom. It does not specify it has to be one or the other. As long as the instructor meets those certified certifications.
Could the training be more than 4 hours if the IWD money only reimburses for up to 4 hours per week and the company match is used for the other hours of instruction?
Yeah, the instruction hours can be longer than 4 hours, but IWD funding will only cover up to 4 hours for the instructor.
What kind of information about employees will need to be sent at the end of the grant, if any? And I did answer this. If you see the reporting requirements in the NOFO, Patrick just went over those briefly. They are all listed. So, and that will be required before you receive grant funds. Does the incumbent worker training for native English speakers, language cultural training hours count in the cap of 4 hours per week? Or can this be in addition to the training hours set up for non-native English speakers?
That one I'll have to refer to Brooke on.
I'll have to look into that and get
Okay.
back to you.
Please clarify the class training time per week allowed. Is it flexible? We are partnering with a community college and the classes are 10 hours per week.
And again, yeah, the hours of instruction can be more than 4 hours, but the reimbursable expenses for the instructor is only 4 hours, is up to 4 hours per week, up to 32 weeks per cohort.
Are farms and restaurants eligible to apply? I think this goes back to the same as the schools. As long as they meet the definition of an NOFO of employer, then they would. Do recipients of services have to be Iowa residents? Some of the Tyson plants are on the Nebraska-Iowa border. Brooke, I don't know if that's a legal question because it's
Well,
an
you know, and
Iowa.
so I think I'll want to look into that. I mean, the NOFO does say the definition of employer has to be an Iowa employer. So I guess I need to look into that and then maybe need a little bit, some additional information.
Okay. Another question, does it have to be in person or can it be a Zoom meeting? We answered that before. It does not specify in the NOFO. Can part-time employees get 4 hours of language training per week? They do have to be full-time employees, I believe. Is that correct, Patrick?
I'm quickly looking through the NOFO. I know that it requires in order for the employer to be eligible, the employer has to have a minimum of 25 full-time employees. I want to quickly look, let me look through the NOFO on that one just to make sure that the employee must be full-time also.
Okay, so we'll go back to that one. Our community college partners with many businesses, industries. If we wanted to partner with local businesses to help with the training, identify training needs, hire, provide instructors, develop curriculum, could we do that? Could we apply and manage the funds on their behalf, or do the businesses need to apply directly? We would have a consortium of employers, but we would not be providing ELL training to our community college employees. I think that one we will answer and get sent out. Can an applicant be an association that represents a collection of smaller employers who doesn't individually meet the 25 full-time employee requirement? I've answered that. Yes, consortiums are encouraged. The consortium needs to have a minimum of 25 full-time employees between all of those employers. Would we need to provide information on the minimum of 25 employees? If so, what information would need to be provided? Do you know, Patrick?
I don't know what the information is going to work, what information we're going to be requesting other than answering that yes or no question of that. I did look further into that question about, do the employees have to be full-time? It does specify what a full-time employee, what the definition of a full-time employee is. I'm still looking to see if there's anything further in that, but that may be a question that we do a little bit more further research onto.
Okay. Would we need to provide information on the, oh, that was the one I just answered, sorry. Under the definition of on-site, does that mean live instruction, or can we provide virtual instruction? We've answered that. The NOFO does not specify that it needs to be in person. Do we have to offer English language instruction, or can it be only for employees to learn another language, i.e. Spanish? And that isn't a NOFO. It can be either or, so that would be okay.
Please, yeah, and one area I want, Karen, real quickly, one area I want to highlight is under the use of funds, the last statement and in the notice of funding opportunity, where it says, in addition to English language instruction. So that means that if you want to choose another language or offer instruction for an additional language other than English, you have to have that one also, it has to be combined with that one. So you have to have the English language instruction. And then in addition to that, you have the option to support English speakers to learn another language.
And next one, did I catch that right? That employers can pay employees for their time in the English classes. So as long as they use 50-50 funding, half paid through the employer, half through grant funding, correct?
Employee wages is not an eligible reimbursement according to the notice of funding opportunity, but employers may choose to pay their employees while they're in that instruction, and then those wage payments can be considered towards the 50% employer match for up to 4 hours per week per participant.
Can you give a specific monetary example of how the 50% reimbursement will work? That's something we'll just get back to you and kind of give you a specific example.
Yeah, I mean, if a headset is a reimbursable expense, so if the headset costs $30, the employer would show that they've paid the $30 for that headset, and then the grant would reimburse up to 50% of that. I don't know if that answers the question or not, no, necessarily.
Okay, sorry. Under reporting requirements, number 3 of the new language learning programs established for employees, can you define this more? Does this mean the number of cohorts run or the number of specific courses developed? Would it also include the training for incumbent native English speaking workers who may be trained through this program? When it lists participant through those reporting requirements, numbers 4 through 7, who are the participants? The English language learners or the native English speakers who are taking language cultural training, or both? Matt, we'll just provide a response on the Q&A.
Yeah, I'll want to discuss that with Sarah.
Okay, are there any concerns or issues we should be aware of for companies who are already doing this type of program, typically more than 4 hours per week, through a partnership with their local community college using integrated English literacy and civics education program? Can they use the IELCE funds to cover hours above the 4-hour cap? I'm going to put some thought into that one. We'll get it on the Q&A. Can employers contract with trainers rather than employing them themselves?
Yeah, I'll say that the instructor does not have to be an employee of the business, as in like it's a current employee. It could be somebody that they have contracted with. Yeah.
Can you please clarify the employee wage component? For example, if we pay our employees while they are taking a language class, is that reimbursed at 50/50?
I'll refer back to the NOFO or the notice of funding opportunity again, where it says employee wages is not an eligible reimbursement expense. However, employers that pay their employees for the time spent in the language program may submit proof of wage payments, and those wage payments can be considered towards the 50% match.
Can grant funds be used for program development planning time or just instruction time?
It does say that instructor wages for up to 4 hours per week for up to 32 weeks. I believe the intent of that, it would be for the actual instruction time, but again, that might be something Sarah and I discuss.
If a public employer is the applicant, do they have to teach their own employee, or can they only teach employees of consortium members?
I may have misheard that. Can you repeat it?
So if a public employer is the applicant, do they have to teach their own employees, or can they only teach employees of consortium members? So yeah, I'm not sure I'm following that one either. If somebody wants to maybe clarify that more in the Q&A, we can come back to that one. Is there a resource for businesses to learn about how to select an appropriate pre and post screening assessment, as well as how to appropriately level students for the training program the business develops? Is the Iowa Department of Education available to support with some of this technical assistance, or to connect with local English language learner programs available through community colleges?
I would just encourage them to make those requests and ask if they are available. I can't speak to say if the Department of Ed is going to be able to available to support with some of the technical assistance necessarily, but you're more than welcome to reach out to see if there are any programs available through community colleges.
Can Fringe be a portion of the match? I'm assuming Fringe benefits.
Yeah, it does say that under ineligible uses of reimbursement funds include, and fringe benefit and expenses is listed as one of them. And I also understand that employee wages is listed there, but employee wages is called out after that. That's saying that it is eligible for the 50% match. I'm assuming that fringe benefits, since that is not called out, that would not be an eligible reimbursement or consideration for the match.
Will the grant cover the cost of having an interpreter in orientation each week? Anybody know? We will look into that and post it in the Q&A. Kind of similar, would translation software be reimbursed at 50-50? For example, if we ran our policies through a translation program, is this covered? Okay, we'll follow up with that one.
Yeah.
Does Iowa Workforce intend on providing resources or partnering with community colleges, DMAC, et cetera, for services? We have had difficulty finding resources and teachers for smaller groups. So I don't think we intend to partner with anyone, but we would encourage applicants to make those connections and see if they can find somebody to partner with. If our college wanted to apply for funding for our employees to provide them training in a second language that will assist in their ability to communicate with non-English speaking students and families that visit the campus, is that a possibility? The funding is not necessarily to support communication among employee groups. My
Sarah, do you want
understanding
to take
of,
that one?
I'd say my
Sure.
understanding would be that it would have to be for employers, not students and families. I don't know, Sarah, if you have.
Yep, that's correct.
What are the measures of language proficiency or evaluation tools that would be required for reporting purposes?
That is part of the application where the applicant will be developing that evaluation tool.
If a public employer is the applicant, do they have to teach their own employees, or can they teach only employees of consortium members? I think this is a clarification from above. So if a community college applies, do they have to teach some of their employees, or can they just teach private employers' employees?
So if I'm understanding this scenario correctly, it would be the community college is applying as part of a larger consortium. And if that's the case, then as part of the consortium, they would be able to teach employees of that consortium, but they would not be able to teach or instruct employees of other employers that are not part of that consortium. If I'm interpreting that correctly, I'm not saying that that's how I'm interpreting it, but or that I'm correct on that interpretation. But if there's 3 businesses that apply as part of the consortium, employees of those 3 businesses would be eligible to participate, but but employees not part of that original consortium would not be eligible.
And then I'm just curious because that brings up a point. So in this instance, the community college would not have any full-time employees that make up the minimum 25. Is that okay? So they would have no employers benefiting from the program. They're just using their teaching to be in a consortium with other employers. Does it say that all members of the consortium have to have employees benefiting? So in their example, let's say they're the lead applicant, but they're not going to have any of their own employees in the language learner program. They're just teaching the employees of other employers. That would be allowed.
I would want to talk to Sarah on that one. That feels like it would be more of a partner than the lead of the consortium. So if the community college is providing the instruction but not instructing any of their employees, then I feel like that would qualify them as a partner rather than a person as part of the consortium. But again, I would want to discuss that with Sarah and also Brooke.
And I agree with that. And I would say that the community college would not be the applicant then. It should be one of the employers in the consortium that has employees who are going to benefit from the program. We will answer that specifically though. I do not see any additional questions. We've answered the ones we could. I will get this distributed to all panelists at the end of this, and we will work probably the next couple days on getting all the answers. And then, like I said, I will send this out via email to all that registered, along with the slideshow and the recording. We will also have it posted on our Future Ready Iowa website. Any last questions? We'll give it here a minute to see if anyone adds anything. Does the lead employer of the consortium have to prove match for the entirety of the consortium? So my understanding is that would be part of your application. So if you have 5 businesses in your consortium, part of those letters of commitment would be each of those employers saying how much they are going to put towards it. And then they would have to show their proof of financial for that amount. So if you have 3 people and they're each going to do 50,000, you would need to show, the FDIC documentation for each of those for the 50,000 each. Or if it is just one employer that has all of it, then they would have to show all of it. All right, I don't see any more. Sarah, do you have anything else to kind of follow up
No,
on?
if anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I can work with the team to get back an answer. I thank everybody for joining us today. And as Karen said, this is going to be recorded and put on the Future Ready Iowa website and sent out to everybody that's signed up. So thank you for listening.